Welcome back, folks, to another archetype review. I'm Frizz, and today we're going to be talking about the Blessed One archetype from the Advanced Player's Guide. This archetype is all about healing the wounded and caring the sick, regardless of if the actual character ever wanted that kind of power. Anyone who takes this archetype will be blessed by a deity, literally basically any deity, and now they can use positive energy to heal people. Remember, kids, though, that non-consensual blessing isn't cool, but deities can do whatever they want, I guess. Any deity can bless someone with this archetype, so long as they can give a positive divine font to their clerics, although deities are going to be a lot more likely to do so. This basically means that, yeah, most deities can bless someone, although some deities like Urgathoa, which are very, very heavily associated with the undeath, probably cannot actually bless someone with this. Without further ado, let's just jump right into the mechanics. Okay, so the Blessed One dedication is actually incredibly basic. You get a single focus point if you didn't already have one, and now you can cast Lay on Hands. For those of you who don't know, Lay on Hands is a focus spell that is normally restricted to good champions that allows for you to heal 6 hit points per spell level as a single action. Although you do have to be next to someone, and in addition to all of that, you also give the target a +2 status bonus to their AC for a single round if you heal someone who isn't you. Champions are generally selfless like that, and the Blessed Ones, their magic works the same way. Also, if you really want to, you can also try and damage undead with this spell, as it's just positive damage, which, you know, hurts undead. Whenever you do this, it deals 1d6 positive damage per spell level, and the undead get a basic fortitude save, and if they manage to fail, then they take a -2 status penalty to their AC for a single round. Honestly speaking here, Lay on Hands is one of, if not the most handy focus spells to have in the entire game, as it gives so much to the party. It can heal up the entire party, so long as nobody has negative healing, of course, without needing to roll any dice or have any risk involved. Its healing is alright, if not incredible. It will be outstripped fairly quickly by other forms of magical and non-magical healing, but it can always add a little bit on top of that, or be a great fallback plan. My only issue with this dedication is that it has literally no benefit if someone already has a focus pool, or if they are already a good champion. I mean, yeah, if they already have a focus pool, they get access to Lay on Hands, but if, you know, you're a good champion and you take this, you don't get literally anything from this archetype, which is never very fun. Although, spoiler alert, you don't really get all that much from this archetype if you're a champion already, so that is a very, very small nitpick. At level 4, the Blessed Sacrifice feat is pretty good, and it gives you another way to help out your allies with focus spells. You get an additional focus point, and as a reaction, you can cast Protector's Sacrifice whenever an ally would take damage within 30 feet of you. You then take some of their damage onto yourself, shielding them from the danger. You reduce the damage that they would take by 3 per spell level, and you take that amount of damage through your immunities, weaknesses, or resistances. So, if you're casting this in as a level 2 focus spell, you reduce their damage by 6, and then you take 6 damage no matter what weaknesses or resistances you have. Also, despite taking damage from the same source, you're not subject to any other effects of the hit, such as a poison that might be on the weapon, and your ally still is, even if you reduce the damage completely. Meaning that if you reduce a poison dagger's damage to 0, you are not poisoned, and your ally still is. This is a pretty fun spell, and it's normally only restricted to protection domain clerics or anyone else who manages to get that domain. It's a nice way to reduce enemy damage, but the actual damage reduction isn't all that huge. Another important part about this feat is that it gives you an additional focus spell, or not focus spell, focus point, excuse me there. This means that you can use Lay on Hands an additional time if you need to, which is pretty important considering that I think about 90, if not all of the other feats in this archetype deal with Lay on Hands, so just think about it that way. It's a situationally useful feat that also gives you an additional focus point. Accelerating Touch is the first feat that we're going to be talking about that improves Lay on Hands, and by God, it will not be the last. It's normally a champion feat, which is also pretty common as you'll see, and it makes those that you heal a bit faster. Now whenever you actually heal someone and they recover, hit points, using lay on hands, they get a plus 10-foot status bonus to their speed until the end of their next turn. This is great on basically anyone, unless they're a monk or swashbuckler, because they will have a status bonus to their speed already, and it can really help someone who is still severely wounded after healing get the hell out of dodge. It's a nice boost, and it's just a flat static bonus to what is already a very good focus spell. So what's not to love? Mercy is another champion feat, and this one is actually a meta magic feat that specifically only works with lay on hands. By spending an action before casting lay on hands, you can cause your touch to soothe fear and paralysis. Now, whenever you use Mercy and Lay on Hands, it's effectively just turning Lay on Hands into a 2-action spell, you can attempt to counteract a fear effect or a paralysis effect on the target, and you still heal them and then apply all of the other boosts. Essentially, you can slap the fear out of someone. If you're frequently running into a lot of fear effects or paralysis, this is legitimately incredibly good. Being able to counteract something, and fear is a pretty common condition to run into. Being able to do that with a focus spell is incredible value. Bless spell is one of the only Blessed One specific feats, and it can actually only be taken by people who can cast from spell slots. This doesn't mean that you can only take this as a full caster. This technically does apply if you have a spellcasting archetype, but yeah, you're going to get the most out of this if you are a full caster with a lot of spells to cast. Once per 10 minutes, you can spend an action before casting a spell, and this spell can only target a single ally. Then you can counteract any conditions that they might have that could be potentially removed by Mercy. At this level, that is just going to be frightened and paralyzed, but as you level up, you can start to get a lot more options. This is legitimately great, since sometimes you simply don't have the actions to get right up next to someone to use lay on hands on them. And you might also have other reasons to not want to be up in melee, like if you're a squishy spellcaster. Also, this doesn't even take your focus point. Basically, it's another way to heal people, another way to just get rid of conditions, which is what this archetype is really about, and it's just a very fun feat, though you really do have to have a lot of spell slots to be able to make this count. The Invigorating Mercy feat takes us right back to the champion feat list, and it allows for you to heal the more physical condition types whenever you heal someone using lay on hands and you use Mercy. Now whenever you do actually spend the action to use Mercy, you can try and counteract the clumsy or enfeebled conditions that the target has. Now, this is going to be true for every other feat that improves Mercy or gives it additional options to pick from, and that is, you have to choose a single condition. So, yeah, Mercy allows for you to target fear and paralyzed, and then Invigorating Mercy allows for you to target enfeebled or clumsy, but you cannot choose all four. You can only choose one of those, so just keep that in mind going forward. Now, these are pretty common conditions, and they can be a real pain in the ass for martial characters, so being able to get rid of them is genuinely great. And also, just something to keep in mind, and this is going to be coming up again, is that you can't completely remove a condition if you aren't removing the cause of the condition. So, as an example, if someone is enfeebled due to having a disease, you would only actually remove the enfeebled condition if you successfully, succeed on your roll, and then it'll only be gone until the end of your next turn. You can't remove diseases quite yet, unfortunately. We'll get there, though. Greater Mercy is exactly what it says. It's an upgrade for Mercy that allows you to target more condition types. Now whenever you use Mercy, you can try and remove or counteract the blinded, deafened, sickened, or slowed conditions. What's interesting here is that this technically works no matter the source of the condition, even if, the condition is coming from an ongoing effect. Now, whether or not your GM actually allows for you to get away with it is a different story, though. Rules as written, if someone is missing eyes, and they're blind because of it, you can just regrow their eyes, though your GM is probably going to rule that that's way too powerful an ability to give to a focus spell. Generally though, all of these conditions are absolute nightmares to have, so being able to potentially remove them is a great ability to have in your pocket. Being slowed for a long period of time is genuinely a character killer. Blessed Denial is actually the last feat specific to the Blessed One archetype, but boy is it great. As a reaction, whenever an ally within 30 feet would become frightened, drained, enfeebled, sickened, or stupefied, you can reduce that value of the condition by 1 to a minimum of 0. If they get multiple of these conditions at the same time, you have to decide which one you want to reduce. Obviously, this is incredible. Conditions are really, really bad to have, and being able to remove them before they even have a chance to be a problem is a great boost, and it can really save that one party member that fails on their saving throw when everyone else passes. The one part of this feat that does legitimately feel odd to me is that Clumsy isn't included in the condition list. It's just the dexterity version of enfeebled or drained, so I don't know why it was included. Also, another thing to point out here is that this is actually the only feat in the entire archetype for some reason that allows for you to affect the drained condition. So being able to reduce that by 1 is incredibly good because getting rid of drained is a nightmare under normal situations. Have you been itching for the ability to improve Mercy yet again? You're in luck. With Elucidating Mercy, you can now give people a moment of calm and clarity, as you can now choose to counteract the confused or stupefied condition instead of the normal Mercy effects. Similarly to Invigorating Mercy, if these conditions are from an ongoing source, you can't remove them forever. Still though, being able to have a chance to remove these conditions is great to have. Confused especially is super dangerous for literally every single character, because it just straight up takes away their turn, which is so dangerous. Also, Stupefied is of course bad for everyone as it lowers their will saves, but for casters, it can just mess up everything that they stand for, so being able to remove it, so long as it isn't being put there by a different effect, is going to really, really help out your casting buddies. Have you been wanting a feat that makes lay on hands better, but doesn't actually require you to spend an additional action just to use Mercy? Then Resilient Touch is here for you, as now whenever you use lay on hands on someone, they get a +1 status bonus to all of their saving throws until the end of their next turn. This is pretty good if you can anticipate that you're going to be making a lot of saving throws in a turn, because if you can do that, a +1 status bonus is going to make a pretty big difference in how well you do on those saves, especially if you have to make a lot of them. Do keep in mind though that this isn't nearly as good if you have other sources of status bonuses to saving throws that come up frequently, because obviously then it won't stack and you're taking a level 12 class feat to be able to do this. So if you are constantly getting a bonus against a lot of common saves, this isn't nearly as good, but it's still pretty nice to have under most situations. Honestly speaking, I feel like Affliction Mercy is the craziest feat in this archetype, and it's where Mercy really starts to get way too good for a focus spell. Now whenever you use Mercy, you can instead try and counteract a curse, disease, or poison that the target is suffering from. This is crazy good, as Lay on Hands is a focus spell, and most abilities that allow for you to remove curses or diseases take spell slots or other limited resources. So being able to just spam a focus spell at a curse until the curse goes away is incredibly good. You can basically take 20 on the roll, as you can just keep on trying over and over and over again until you roll high enough that you manage to get rid of the curse or the disease. Diseases take place over a long time span, so yeah, the time that it takes to actually, cast Lay on Hands over and over and over again isn't going to be that big of a problem. Basically, the whole party is going to be immune to curses and diseases now if you have enough time, and you also get a chance to purge poison from people's systems. All of this is on top of the hit point healing that this already has, so seriously, this is great. Amplifying Touch is another one of those feats that makes Lay on Hands into actually a buff spell. Now whenever you cast Lay on Hands on someone and they actually heal hit points, they get a +1 status bonus on their attack rolls and 1 extra good damage on all of their attacks until the end of their next turn. Honestly, this is horrifyingly good, as while it is a bit limited by requiring the target be damaged before you use this, and that it only lasts a single turn, a +1 bonus to damage is crazy good, especially on someone who makes a lot of attacks. Also, this is something important to keep in mind, is that at high level, a ton of monsters will have weakness to good damage, so slapping some extra good damage on a friend can legitimately make a very big difference. Obviously though, if you have another source of status bonuses to attack rolls, such as Inspire Courage from a Bard, or a Martial Aura, this is much less useful. That +1 status bonus to accuracy is really, really good though. Rejuvenating Touch legitimately increases the healing of Lay on Hands by more than 100%, though imagine that the healing I just said had an asterisk next to it. Your healing now has some staying power actually, giving the ally that it heals from Lay on Hands 10 temporary hit points per turn, but these temporary hit points only last for a single turn. Essentially, they get 100 temporary hit points over a series of 10 turns. If they're ever knocked unconscious, then this effect instantly ends. This is pretty situational, but generally I have mixed feelings about this feat. It's a hell of a lot of temporary hit points, but not all that many combats will actually be hitting the 10 turn marker, and even then, you're gonna have to use a lot of risky plays to get the most out of the temporary HP. I'd like this feat a lot more if it was less total temporary HP, but it came all at once and lasted for a couple of turns. As it is though, the most useful situation I can see this in is slapping this on someone who's low health who also has persistent damage, as then getting that additional temporary hit point every turn is going to help them survive the persistent damage. Overall, I do genuinely enjoy this archetype a lot, though I do have a couple of issues with its design. On the positive side of things though, it's incredibly fun and a super flavorful archetype that brings a ton of value to the team, even though it can be a bit situational. Lay on Hands is incredibly good for out-of-combat healing, even if it is just going to be the sprinkles on top of someone who's focusing on medicine, and Mercies allow for you to get rid of almost any condition in the game. Plus, someone being blessed by a deity that they have literally no attachment to is just funny to me. There are two parts of this archetype, though, that I do have some issues with. First off, it actually only has 2 feats that are actually unique to the Blessed One. Everything else is literally just a champion feat, or it gives a champion focus spell or a cleric focus spell. Everything else is just kinda, I don't know, I wish that it had more unique abilities. And I know that it's a small issue, but I just feel like it'd be fun if it had a bit more unique flair to it. The second gripe that I have is that this is clearly the Mercy archetype, yet it doesn't get access to the Ultimate Mercy feat, even though it's, the same level as the Rejuvenating Touch feat and the original champion. Seriously, what's wrong with giving Breath of Life to anyone who takes this at level 20? It's level 20, man, just let people do crazy stuff. Essentially, this is a great archetype if you're in a campaign where you run into a lot of negative conditions, and you can seriously pull your weight with out-of-combat healing. If you're a champion, though, you really won't get all that much out of this, as you just get access to a bunch of feats you can already get. So, champions stay away, everyone else have fun. Thanks for watching. I've been thinking about doing a video on the Blessed One for a bit now, and honestly, the reason why I haven't decided to do it is because it has a lot of champion feats, and that's just, I don't know, it kind of rubs me the wrong way. I prefer it when archetypes have a lot of really interesting and unique stuff, but it's a fun archetype, so who really cares about that? When it comes down to it, it's fun, and that's what matters. Regardless, here it is in all of its full healing glory. If you can think of anything that I could do to make these videos better, I'd love to hear it down below, because I know that I am terrible at actually realizing what I do wrong personally. Until I see you next, live a wonderful life.